running a business is a tough and lonely journey. Welcome to the Executives on the Frontlines podcast, where business owners and C-suite executives like you will get real answers to your everyday business problems. I'm your host, Jeff Palacio, and together we will learn from senior leaders who have occupied every top box of a company's org chart for every size organization and who like to roll up their sleeves while checking their egos at the door. Welcome to another episode of the Executives on the Frontlines podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Palacio. Today, we're going to discuss a common CEO challenge on how to effectively delegate responsibilities while ensuring consistency, collaboration, and not only maintaining, but sometimes enhancing the company culture. Our expert guests today are Elizabeth Souder and Clive Mecham. Welcome, Clive and Elizabeth.
Thanks, Jeff.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, excited to talk to you guys. So let's, Clive, maybe you can start with maybe giving a little bit of background of this client you had, explain their situation.
I'd be happy to. And it's really common when a CEO is either very involved in helping a company grow or maybe is new to the role. And everything that's a challenge for him is kind of stuff on his plate. And so it's often difficult for them to ensure consistent application of business management that they're typically used to doing, trying to delegate that to others and make sure that it's done well. So we had a recent experience. I had a client that I've worked for a couple of years. We get together for lunch all the time. We got together the other day, and I was asking him what was particularly challenging for him right now at this point in time. And he said, for me, I'm just so overloaded with contract review. It's eating my lunch. I really got to find a way to get more of my leadership team involved, help them with understanding what to look for in contracts, to be comfortable in improving contracts, and then managing the process over time. So we talked about that, and oftentimes the problem is not the real problem, because through further discussion, he expressed to me that he felt like that his leaders were well aligned, that they were on the same page. And this situation was one where the company has various offices, 8 or 9 different locations, different leaders in those locations, and the thought by the CEO is, well, they're working very effectively together. We share work, we share responsibilities, and we're a good working team. In reality, that wasn't the case. There was a situation where there were some silos starting to develop, to where people were just solving their own problems, working in their own worlds, and not really reaching out to each other and collaborating and comparing notes and trying to do more with what they had. So it presented an opportunity for us to take this technical challenge, this business challenge that the CEO had, and broaden it out to help him manage that group, to help them get on the same page with regards to goals and objectives and what they were trying to accomplish and how they were going to accomplish that. So with that initial request for focus on contracts, that was outside of my wheelhouse. So I dug back into Exec HQ and said, wow, I need to find somebody that's got expertise there. And I did. I met Elizabeth Souder, and she had that experience and with working with companies.
So Elizabeth, you were brought into the process, obviously, because of your legal expertise, and obviously had to do about contract and contract process, which you're obviously well familiar with. But how did you and Clive get together to make the client understand that the problem they originally contacted you for was actually a bigger challenge that they didn't even know they had?
So I would reframe that to be an opportunity, because what we did was we engaged in a series of inquiry sessions with the client, where we spoke directly with the CEO. Like, let's dig in deeper to what do you perceive to be the challenge, and then where is that opportunity in within that to broaden it out? Because as Clive and I both know, having worked in operations and supported companies for so many years, you can think that the problem is X, but it's actually X minus, it's an algorithm, right? X minus Y plus Z. And so what we saw was we have a new CEO. We have a process that is stymieing his ability to perform, or what he perceives as an inability to perform, is a new team that he used to manage. Where can we accelerate and elevate this contracting process conversation into more of a collaborative problem solving experience for the entire team? And I think that's where we got after a series of inquiry sessions.
Yeah. So what was the process to get them to understand it?
It was multiple discussions, certainly. I think the big question was, what does success look like for you? As we embark in this relationship, what does that look like? And all of a sudden, it went from contract review to, I want to empower my team. I want to make sure they're on the same page. I'd like them to work collaboratively across these multiple office locations. And so we took that list of successes and kind of boiled it down, and he was ready to go. He saw the benefit in moving in a little bit of a different direction.
So, Clive, you got the CEO interested in and saying, "Oh yeah, there is a bigger problem. I'm all in." But then, how did you get his leadership team interested, and moving forward, and obviously eventually accepting ownership for their portion of the process?
Right. It was largely with his direction, certainly his leadership, encouraging them to want to embark on this journey. But it really was when we got together as a group in a room together and started to talk about, why are we doing this? Why do we care about this particular part of your operation? Because they're project managers, they're scientists, they're engineers, they're technical people. And so we tied it back into the business life cycle of what they do. It's like, okay, let's back up and look at everything you do during your day, from developing scopes of work to getting a contract in place to communicating with the team, the whole process. This is part of what you do as a project manager, scientist, engineer, business leader. It's like, oh, so this is important. This is a component of that business life cycle that we really haven't paid much attention to in the past.
What were some of the other things you did to get that leadership team engaged and interested?
So what this is really to the credit of the CEO, because what we proposed was, let's take this opportunity. We're bringing these leaders together. They're all from different parts of the country, and this is a unique opportunity for them to be together. So we introduced the Working Genius, which is a tool that I use quite a bit in my consulting. It's quite familiar with, from Patrick Lencioni and the Table Group, and we did it. We started with a Working Genius session because it becomes a level set, right? We're all coming from different places. We all are, we're here for different, maybe we all have different ideas about why we're here, but it helps us understand what is it about work that each of us loves to do, and what is it that maybe causes us frustrations. And it just started a dialogue that was a little bit of a different level set. And it applied to contracting 100%, because when we're looking at a contract review process, there are points at which we do need to reinvent what it is we're looking at or think differently. And it goes through these 6 phases. I won't walk everyone through them, but the essential element is that there are 6 phases of work. And within that leadership team, there are certain elements that some people derived a lot of joy out of, and others it caused them frustration. And when they started to have that dialogue, and then we move from there into that contract specific conversation, they started to become their own wonderers, inventors, galvanizers around certain topics and issues. And again, it was a level set at the beginning of the day that then led into this very productive conversation regarding contracts, and led into a highly productive conversation in the later part of the afternoon, which was really Clive and me facilitating a collaboration. So kudos to the CEO for being open to that level set exercise before moving into that deep dive into that operational issue that they identified.
So was the working genius process and going over that, did that help them kind of accept their portion of the process and take ownership of it?
That I think they were very surprised. I mean, we've yet to introduce this kind of a tool to a group where they don't start to look around and go, oh, that's why we work together. Oh, that's why we complement. Oh, understand why, they begin to see one another, especially this kind of a group, because this is a company where people don't leave very often. They have a high retention. So they've worked together for many years, are familiar with each other, but they saw why they began to connect dots, which then elevated the entire experience for them, because they appreciated what Working Genius was bringing to their own understanding of themselves and how they collaborated and worked best together.
Yeah, it's so interesting. It's so siloed and so many different types of people and scientists, like you said, and executives, and I'm sure finance and the different functional areas. Were there other dynamics that the client team exhibited that you didn't anticipate?
There always are. It always happens. And it's being able to respond on the fly. But what I noticed, and I'm sure Clive did too, were people looking across the table at each other and saying, or next to each other and saying, oh, this is why I look to you when I've got this kind of a question. Or, yes, I remember that you shared X experience and I reached out to you. And that probably had something to do with your working genius or what you particularly love to do in the contracting process. And I kept I caught a hold of that, but now I understand why. And I'm going to be more intentional about the ways in which I utilize and this team in collaborating around our contracting process. So it was a lot about igniting that conversation and that awareness within the team and allowing there to be space for those conversations and collaborations and experiences to evolve. Clive and I did, a number of those. We're going to take 5 minutes, turn to the three people next to you, have a conversation, and then bring it back together. And again, that is where the true magic starts to shine, because you've broken down some of whatever barriers might have existed before they walked in the room, and you start to build back up that trust level.
Yeah, and it reduced some of the intimidation that I think they felt going into the session, realizing that, oh, I can ask for help. I can ask for my partners to help me out here. And now I know what they love to do and what they're good at doing. So I feel less intimidated about contract review specifically, but also understanding that there will be periods when we're going to have to reach out to better expertise. But certainly, I think they recognize this is not so ominous. We can do this.
So were there any aha moments at the end of all your work with the client after multiple sessions? Did they have like, oh my goodness, this happened?
That is where the true magic, again, I feel like I said that many times, but we gave them an assignment to collaborate. So we walked them through the Working Genius, we walked them through the contracting process, and then we wanted to see, where is this going with you? So we divided them into groups and we gave them a workshop assignment on their own, and we brought them back together and asked each group, what did you notice in this dummy contract that we put out for you? What issues did you spot? What were the aha moments you had as you began to review this? And then Clive captured them on a whiteboard. And what was really interesting was to see how frequently they identified the same issues. Also, what different issues did they identify? Or maybe they identify the same issues for different reasons. And that stimulated a conversation and a collaboration among the group that would not have occurred had we not done the pre-work, had we not set up the entire workshop in the way that we had, because then we were able to step back and watch and facilitate what started to occur in the room. And I don't know about you, Clive, I'm gonna let you chime in here in a minute, but what we truly saw was a conversation around alignment between the client's vision, values, and purpose, and how they wanted that to live on in the contracting process. Contracting process does not stand outside of the rest of the operations. It is the first documentation of the relationship. And so often, I think companies tend to think about as that's legal, that's operation, that's different from. This client embraced the opportunity to think about, hey, trust and relationship and in our value of how we view our own clients, that is paramount to why we exist and how we've continued to grow and thrive. We want that to be a part of this contracting process. That wasn't, Clive and I were not feeding them that information. That was all organic that came out of the conversation that I think we'd set up in the morning. Clive?
Yeah, you really hit it. It really went from the concept of, oh, we're doing this to manage risk for the company. It's all about contracts are all about managing liabilities and risks. To wow, here's an opportunity to communicate what we're about, to communicate value, to set ourselves apart from the competition, but to also set the stage for how we want to be treated during this hopefully long contracting period.
Yeah, I love, whether you have an internal client or external clients, as we do in this case, it's usually, help me solve this problem leads to like, no, you have like these other 5 problems too. So let's look at them all. You have to solve the obviously the original one, but it's always like that. Any closing thoughts to kind of summarize your experience with this client?
Well, I think the beauty for me was that this process is so applicable across so many different industries and so many different scenarios. I mean, really, wherever you've got people who are interacting and communicating and trying to solve either technical issues or financial issues or operational issues, here's the chance to really elevate that and to make it much more than just that focal point. It really helps build the individuals as professionals. It helps build the team and ultimately strengthen the company.
I can only say amen to everything Clive said. I also want to really credit the CEO with recognizing the opportunity to empower his team,
Right.
to collaborate further and to rely upon each other and in many ways make his own job easier in the process, right? Because they weren't going to be coming to him constantly for approvals. They now felt empowered, and throughout that session, he continued to reiterate that they were empowered to make these decisions, but he wanted there to be this open collaboration and communication about what do we want to tolerate in a contract situation, what do we want it to show about who we are as a company, and how are we going to lean on each other when we encounter specific situations that we may not know how to handle. And seeing that collaboration not only be invited but be embraced at a leadership level was so empowering, I felt, for the entire team.
Thank you both for coming on Executives on the Front Lines. It's a great example of how to collaborate and how to help clients solve problems that they don't even know they have. So thank you both. There'll be a link to both of your calendar links if people want to get hold of you and schedule a meeting. So thank you both.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Executives on the Front Lines. If you are interested in learning more about today's guest, you can schedule a 15-minute call with them by scanning the QR code or using the link in the episode description. Please join me every 2 weeks to learn from another great leader sharing insight that can help you and your business.